This is an Advocacy Training 101 to get you ready for Capitol Day. And my name is Kim Cortez, and I am the SPAC chair for the Junior League of Cobb, Marietta. And so let's give you some tips and tricks to have a successful Capitol Day and moving forward, speaking with your legislators. All right, so remember that from our day-to-day work within our community committees, we are trying to volunteer and get out in the community and help solve issues that are affecting the women and children of our respective communities. And so that's great from the day-to-day to fill that direct need, but advocacy comes into play to try to think more long-term to make it to where this need no longer exists. And so one way to be able to advocate is to get involved in state politics. So our leaders and our legislators aren't experts in every single field that they're taking votes on. They're only part-time legislators. They do have real jobs outside of being our legislator. And so they do need to be informed. So we, as their constituents, can help do that. Also, better communities are shaped by involved citizens. So we being on the ground, helping to volunteer and get into the community can help educate our lawmakers about those needs and areas of reform. And also be an informed voter. So when you go to vote for your legislator, check and see what are the votes that they've had previously. Look at issues that are meaningful to you and see, do they vote along the lines that you would hope they would as their constituent? All right, so this is a graphic to describe how a bill is passed in the Georgia legislature. And so how it occurs is us advocating for what needs to change. The legislator's like, oh, there's a need in this area, so we should write a bill. And so he or she goes and talks to the lawyers in the Office of Legislative Counsel, and they draft a bill. And then this bill gets filed with the clerk of the House or the secretary of the Senate, and then it gets read on first reading as being introduced. So this is where the bill is first introduced to the legislature, and it's referred to as the first reading. As soon as it gets done with the first reading, it goes to a committee that will look more closely at it, who has more expertise in that specific area. And so if it's education related, it will go to the respective House or Senate Committee on Education. In the House, even though it's in committee, it will get read a second time. The title will get read a second time. And for the Senate, the second reading occurs only after it's come back from committee. So when it's in committee, the author of the bill and other legislators can come and testify to talk more about why this is necessary. And if it's a controversial bill, the public can often come in and have hearing and testify as well as to why this is an important bill or not. And so if the bill is reported favorably by the committee saying, yep, we need this, it is then returned to the clerk or secretary, and then it goes into the queue for it to be voted on. And so over here, eventually it gets, once it comes up in the queue, the bill is ready for floor debate, amendments, and voting. So after the debate and main questions are answered, if the bill is approved by the majority of total membership of the House, it is sent to the other House. So from the House to the Senate or the Senate to the House. And if that second chamber passes the bill, it's then returned to the original chamber to make sure that if there were any additions or deletions, that it's still okay with their original design. And then if that's approved in the original, chamber. It's then moved to the governor's desk to be signed and become law. All right, so how do you know who your legislator is? What you can do is go to this website, and it's the Secretary of State's office website, and you can put in your first initial, your last name, the county, and your date of birth, and you can find who your representative and who your senator is at the State House. So for Cobb County, we have a map of the different districts. So these are the Senate delegation for Cobb County, and oftentimes the district is going to overlap multiple counties. It's not going to focus just on one single county. And so for Cobb, we have 6 senators, and this layout gives you the contact information for each of your senators. So where their office is down at the Capitol, their phone number, their fax, and their email. The House of Representatives, Cobb has far more representation. And so you can see here that it ranges from an attorney to a teacher to a nurse, and everything in between in terms of who are representing us down at the State House. And so what this means is all of our delegation brings different expertise in areas. So with this, you can see if they're chairman of a committee, where they're, and again, all of their contact information. This one also has what occupation they are and their date of birth. All right, so this webpage is where you can go and find out more information about your legislator and also the different bills that are occurring in the House and the Senate. And so if there's a specific House bill, which is represented by HB, that you're interested in, you can come here, type in the number, and hit search, and everything related to that bill will come up. Same with Senate bill as well. All right, so while your SPAC delegates have been working really hard to get your representatives and your senators to come to our lunch, another way of contacting your representative or your senator is by calling them to the ropes. And so you can think of this kind of like the paparazzi behind the red carpet. So they're all behind the ropes, the paparazzi, and that would be us. We are trying to get the attention of our delegates. And so how we go about doing that is we fill out a note card on the podium outside of each chamber. And so we hand that note to a staff member who's sitting at the desk by the red ropes, and that staff member is going to give that to a page, oftentimes a student volunteer, who is going to then take our note to our legislator. And the legislator, depending on their availability at that time, will either come out and meet with you, or they'll send the page out and say that they are not available. So with this, you need to know what your legislator looks like. And so that's part of the reason why I include pictures in the map earlier for our Cobb delegation. So this is an example of the card that you would fill out for the Senate. It has the senator's name, their location, which would be filled out by the staff member, the date, time, your name, and who you're with, so Junior League of Cobb Marietta, whether or not you're waiting in the hall, how soon you will be available, and if you need a response right away. And so let's say we want them to vote for House Bill 719. That's what please vote for this specific bill. Okay, that would be something that we would want to get the message across for. All right, so with that, anytime you meet with your legislator, you need to come prepared. You need to have come having done your homework. Be timely. Make sure you're on time. Actually, make sure you're early. Be brief in the discussion of the topic you want to discuss. Keep in mind these legislators are part-time legislators, but once they're there, they are jam-packed. And bring information to leave. So all of these legislators have people coming to talk to them about their respective issue all the time. And so they're all bringing information. So you want to make whatever you leave as brief as possible, getting across the major points. So make sure that it's no more than one page, that it has lots of pictures, and that you can glance at it briefly and get the idea. So bullet points, pictures, and necessary stats that get your point across. So if you've ever heard of an infographic, if you have not, Google it. That would be an example of what you would want to bring and leave for your legislator. Make sure that you identify yourself as either constituent or a concerned citizen. So if you're speaking directly to your voted for representative or senator, that would be that you are their constituent. You help, or if you didn't vote for them, put them into office. Or if you're not speaking to your senator or representative, you would be a concerned citizen. Make sure you identify who you're speaking on behalf of. So if you're speaking in regards to bills that we're supporting for Junior League, make sure that you identify yourself as a member of Junior League of Cobb Marietta or Junior League of Georgia. And make sure you identify why is this specifically important to you. So in terms of, let's say, the adoption bill, are you a foster parent, or did it take you 3 years to adopt your child? These are all issues that are important, and the more you can put a personal face or a face to these issues, the more meaningful it is to them. However, make sure you keep it brief. All right, so always, always, always be respectful. Even if they don't agree with you or you agree with them, always be respectful. And remember that you're in control. You're the one who can vote them in or out. And keep that in mind. They work for you. Also, make sure to show up early. So this is part of the be respectful part, right? They are really, really busy people during sessions, so you don't want to waste their time. Be sure to thank them for their time and for meeting with you, and don't take up more time than what you've requested. And always follow up with a thank you note that includes additional information that you hadn't included in your one-page pamphlet that you left. This could be in the form, and typically is in the form of an email. This is essentially just the opposite of what we just talked about. So don't be condescending or disrespectful. Be sure, don't drag out your meetings, don't be late. You get the idea. All right, so other communication tips is make sure you figure out where they stand on the specific issue. So what do you think, or what should we consider about the specific bill? Or who else should we talk to? Sometimes these legislators are working together on a specific bill, and if there's something of interest, maybe there's another person who you need to talk to. Also, you want to know specifically, are they going to vote for this bill? Or can you support this by speaking to other legislators? And then finally, always end with thank you. So what if they ask really good questions that you aren't prepared for because, right, we aren't specific experts in all of these areas? Well, you can always say, I'm not the right person to answer that, but I can connect you with an expert, or that's a great question. I'll look into it and get back to you. But always make sure to get the conversation back on track. So what I can tell you is X, Y, and Z. Or the thing to remember is we want to make sure that every child has recess and has free time every day. And always be honest about what you don't know. Nobody likes a liar. All right, so how do you get to know your legislators more than just on TV or in the papers? Make sure you attend their events. Look at where they're speaking in the community. Look at town halls or debates or public meetings. There's a Cobb County Republican Party, and there's also a Cobb County Democratic Party, and each of these groups have monthly meetings where our legislators come and speak. And there's also bipartisan groups as well where they come to speak. Make sure to follow them on social media, get their newsletters, and stay informed on their issues. I've actually gotten quite a few mailers in the mail from our legislators lately in terms of what issues they're voting on and their positions on certain stances. And so they've actually done a really good job of trying to get their stances out for us to know. And know their votes. We'll get to this in a second, but you can track and see what specifically they're voting yes and no for. Attend committee, council, commission meetings, or watch them online. On the webpage that I showed you earlier that you could access the bills on, you can also look at watch committee meetings online from there. And also follow the news. So knowing their votes. At the House, so you can follow both the House and the Senate. So this is 2017-2018 regular session. This is this year. You can go, so let's see, let's go to one from 2018. Okay, so we can go to, let's go here. Oh, that's roll call. That's not useful. Passage. So if for House Bill 671, you can click on here to see specifically what that was. And this is Georgia Beekeepers Association special license plates. So apparently beekeepers wanted their own license plate. We can see specifically who voted yes, who voted no. So no one voted no in this case. And so yes means, or Y means yes, and each of our legislators are here by last name, and this would be the district that they represent. And so you can see that for the House and for the Senate. So if we go to the Senate, we can see the adoption bill and see who. This was a unanimous vote, apparently. There were 50 yays and no nays, and 3 excused and 3 not voting. So that is how you can check their votes. All right, so you can also figure out what committees they're on. So typically they're going to be on committees that they have some expertise on. But every member is assigned to a committee, and more senior members are the people in charge of those committees. And each chamber has a mirror committee. So education, there is a committee for education in both the House and the Senate, but they're not always named the same. So if we go here, we can see the committees for the House. And so here we have higher education, and then we also have a regular education committee for the House. And for the Senate, we have education and youth versus higher education. So that's an example of the different committees. So for the House delegation, this is their committee assignments for the 2017-2018 session. So I've put them all here for you. All right, so make sure that you realize that you hold the power in terms of being the feedback on the bills for your area. So many legislators rely on community leaders they trust to give feedback. So not only talking about to the legislators themselves, but also talk about these issues with our local leaders in addition to our legislators, because the more ears that hear about these issues, the more chance there is for change. And become this resource, or become the resource to that resource, and you'll have their ear. And here are how you can find your local lawmakers in each of the different leagues of Georgia. And with that, I look forward to seeing you guys at Capitol Day. And if you have any further questions about how the Capitol Day process is going to work, please reach out to me on Facebook or message me. And I will see you then. Bye.